Welcome to Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 242, Free for All. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. Call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. The Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Ninja, the simple-to-use remote monitoring and management solution. Try it free at info.ninjamsp.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have a special group for everyone today. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. How do you doing, Paco?
Better than I deserve, Jeff. Better than I deserve.
Awesome, man. And joining us also, we have John Dubinsky from Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Locked and loaded.
All right. And we also have Chris Carruthers from Remote Support Tech Team. How you doing, Chris?
Witty caption.
And last but not least, we have the return of the one, the only Flukemeister, Mr. Marvin Bee from MB Systems.
Fantastic, baby.
Awesome. Great to have this group, this panel back once again. It's been a long time since we've all been in the same room together, so just excited for that. But let's go ahead and start with a tip or story that we could learn from. And Paco, I'm going to throw it over to you and give you the first shot.
Sure. Test your phone systems. That's going to be my tip. So
what happened?
So, well, it wasn't more of an issue, more of it's a better workflow. So there's 3 systems in play when somebody calls me. I have my 8x8 phone system. I have my receptionist over at Regis. And then I also have my mobile phone that it gets forwarded to, so it can ring my cell phone and it can ring my landline as well. So what's happening is that apparently when I tell people to give me a call on my extension, call the main number, press the number extension, it'll come directly to me. I failed to tell them that's only during business hours. So apparently some of my clients in Evanston, it says everyone knows I closed my office over there in the beginning of the year. So apparently they called me after hours, they hit 8 and it just went to dead air, or it just kept ringing versus going back to the menu saying, hey, we're closed during business hours, etc. So whatever happened with that, I had a couple clients thought that we were closed for good. And when they didn't receive my email and call when I called them back in January and they looked us up, they saw that the Evanston office was closed, so they assumed the worst. So I usually call back whenever I have missed calls over the weekend. So they were pretty happy to hear that I was not closed. So check your phone systems and just make sure that the workflow is going to be proper to you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And it's probably a good idea to have somebody on the outside calling in just to see how all that stuff works so they can test it for you.
Yep.
All right. Let's see, Mr. John Dubinsky. Let's go ahead and go with you.
I got a list of some little tips this week, Jeff. So if everybody will bear with me, I'll run right through them. Everybody's heard of Google Project Fi. So I took the plunge about 2 weeks ago. Changed over, got my Pixel XL on Google Fi.
I'm sorry.
Kind of surprised how much I like it.
Oh.
Everything is working fabulous. All my Google Voice came right over. So knock on wood. Obviously, I think picking your carrier has a lot to do with your location, but at least for me here in the West Michigan area and with the limited travel I've done so far, it's been great. So we'll see what happens in DC and thereabouts here for the unconvention. I don't know if anybody's heard or even cares, but tweaking.com has a new version of their Windows repair tool. All-in-one is now at version 4.0. I haven't played with it much, but just to throw that out there for everybody. I know on the show we get a lot of questions about training. There's a new website called Cybrary, and I'll put this link in the show notes, cybrary.it. Has a bunch of Microsoft and CompTIA training out there for free, absolutely zero. So I thought that was pretty cool. Ran across that. This news is about 10 days old, but Avast bought Puriform, our friends that make CCleaner. So I don't know if you guys, I didn't hear you guys talking about that last week, but I thought that was interesting. I don't know what that means for the rest of us, but that's pretty cool. Those of us that use the Arachnus networking products got a treat of a new OVRC or Oversee release in the last 2 weeks, which is, I won't bore anybody with all the features, but it has some great new features in there for those of us that use it. And finally, since summer is sort of getting towards the end, I don't want to depress everybody, but I do live in a northern state, so summer's almost over. I got about a month left. There's a website called Only in Your State. I don't know if this is a nerd recommendation or tip, but I guess you could break out your Google Maps and post on Google Plus if you want to be a nerd about it. Cool thing about this state is you just type in which state you live in, and it gives you about 100 cool things to do in your state if you're looking for something to do.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
So I'll post that in the show notes as well.
So are you saying that people should actually take time for themselves and do something other than IT?
We've talked about that before. You can take my tip or leave it or use it.
Absolutely. And I prefer that others would actually use that tip. Now, I do have one thing to say about CCleaner. Love the product. I've loved the product for many, many years. I actually use the portable version on occasion, not as much as I used to. And I don't install it anymore because it wants to run in the background now. So I don't know if there's a way to shut that off. I never looked at it. Once a program like that says, hey, I'm going to run in the background and try to keep you safe, I tend to run away. But that's just me. Even
in the portable version?
Portable version, no. So you can still use a portable version, run it, not a big deal. But if you go to download the XE and actually install it, because a lot of people, I still have customers that will install it themselves, and they still, I don't know if they ever run it or they just like having it on their system. But a lot of times I've ran into problems it running against other antiviruses, and just there's a lot of things going on in the background. And when people have cheap computers, it doesn't end well. So anyway,
it seems like everything's battling for that spot. You know, wants to load, wants to be on your desktop, wants to screw everything up.
Yeah. Yep. And by themselves, they don't do it on purpose, but together, it's like, hey, I've only got so much bandwidth, and I'm using this Core i3 processor with, 2.0 gigahertz with 2 gigs of RAM. 2 megs of RAM. That'd be really old. Anyways, all right, we'll move on from there. All right, Mr. Marvin Bee, what do you got for us this week?
So I'll give a tip, which is basically do your job even when no one is watching. And I have several things in the last week that have kind of come back to be representative of that for me. But I'll even say that one today came up, which probably isn't true, but the way that it was presented to me, I just took credit for it. So I was headed to an office to put in a data round trip device, because I have a server that had a whole bunch of data change. So it's too big to kind of throw up to the cloud. So I take a external drive there, back it up to the external drive, then send it. But earlier in the day, they had a mail server that had become unresponsive. And I have not only my Max Focus stuff set up over there, I have a Wattbox there. So mail server became unresponsive. I rebooted it using the Wattbox, and then proceeded to head over to the clients to do this backup round trip. So as I'm coming in the door, an attorney is there, basically saying, I knew that you knew the mail server was down. You were awesome. So did you come here to fix it? And I said, it's already fixed.
Nice.
And so he went back to his desk, opened it up, and man, you are awesome. So just little things like that. But I had actually got a bunch of referrals earlier in the week that were not from my actual client, but somebody associated with my clients who knew the stuff I was doing. And these are clients that I don't go see them on a regular basis, but they know that I'm taking care of their stuff, and they vouch for the fact that I'm taking care of their stuff. So that's how they refer me as, this guy does what he says he's going to do. Even if you don't see him, he's taking care of it. So that's my tip. Do your job even when nobody's watching.
Absolutely. Yeah, no shortcuts. That's a good tip, and I think it's something for us to remember even when we are tempted to maybe make a shortcut on something, to not do that. Very good. All right, Mr. Chris Carruthers, what do you got for us this week?
All right. Well, the tip I have is be basic. We tend to take these situations that seem really, really complicated. We overcomplicate things and we completely forget to go back to the basics on it. And the story that I have to go along with that is I have a client that called me up, said that they couldn't get a new computer joined to their Active Directory. They couldn't figure out why, and that their shares weren't working properly. So, I always ask the same questions. Has anything changed? Have you installed anything new? Did you take anything out? And always the answer is no, 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 no. Well, after about 30 minutes of troubleshooting, I realized that the DNS isn't pointing at the server at all. This client refuses to get an external router. And when their modem went out, the ISP came out, replaced the modem. So the DNS settings weren't set properly anymore. Nothing was connecting to the Active Directory server. So that's my big tip. Just, make sure you're setting things up properly and make sure that you ask the right questions. Because if you forget the basics, you're going to waste a half hour.
Absolutely. And even when asking the right questions, a lot of times they will not necessarily give you the right answer. So that's unfortunate. Oh, all right. Let's go ahead and we're going to take
a second, Jeff. I got a question for Chris. Chris, how did you discover that was the problem?
Because on a whim, when I was just going through all of the different steps that I normally go through, I did an ipconfig all and realized that the DNS server settings were both external IP addresses.
Sweet.
Nice. Yeah, good tip there. Yeah, I just use the force.
Is that what you do? You just tell the computer to work?
It just comes to me. No, the problems come to me, and then I just go in and fix them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Osmosis. I don't know what you call it. I'm just kidding. All right. Let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break, and we will come back, and we'll talk about, I don't know, whatever these guys want to talk about. All right, Ninja. Our show today is brought to you by Ninja, the remote monitoring and management solution to help you become more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. With Ninja, you can have a faster fixed response time and offer preventative maintenance to your customers. Ninja understands what you need to run your business, which is why their RMM solution is integrated with tools you use every day. Ninja provides competitive pricing, patch management, antivirus, email, and SMS alerting. You can be up and running quickly with minimum training time. You have TeamViewer integration for that remote support. It's one solution for managed and non-managed clients alike. Get network visibility inside the RMM. See what's going on. Fix those problems before they even know there's a problem. Easy to read dashboards, which I thoroughly enjoy. It's got to be easy to read, or I'm just going to gloss over it. A powerful device search where you can create custom queries and export the list to show your customers. And also an executive style report showing important system metrics such as health score, software added, removed, hardware changes, and TeamViewer connections. And also we have in the beta right now, we have third-party patching. So that is exciting. That we've got some other things that they're constantly working on things and trying to improve them, making it better to have a all-in-one solution that will do everything you need it to do. Ninja is offering Podnutz a free 30-day trial. When you decide to buy a 10% discount to take advantage of this offer, go to info.ninjamsp.com/Podnutz.
Yeah, another cool thing that they just came out with as well is another remote support software to integrate, which is Splashtop. So that's currently live in the regular Ninja release. The Mac version of it is in beta, if I'm not mistaken, along with the third-party patching as well. So I use Splashtop, has been using it for the past year, so really cool to have that integration as well in that system.
Very
yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. That is true. And for the people like me who hate Splashtop because we've had bad experiences with it, they're not getting rid of the TeamViewer integration. So that's there to stay as well.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Let's see. So let's see. Who can I pick on? Let me pick on. You know what? We're going to go in reverse order. Chris, we're going to come back to you. And what
my heart
topic would you like to bring to the show today, or what questions would you want to talk amongst the group and just have us kind of come together in mind meld and figure out a solution, or just give us something to talk about?
Something to talk about that's not going to take up the entire show?
Correct.
Okay.
I know that's hard for you.
That is.
Please.
That is hard for me because the thing that's screaming in my head right now is regulation in the IT industry, but that's an entire show all to itself.
Exactly. That's coming. That is coming down the road. We will talk about that.
You promise? Okay.
I promise.
So I guess a big thing that I really want to talk about is how do you guys handle, like, I know how I handle irate customers. How do you guys handle irate customers? Like someone's just getting right into your face about whatever's going on, either because of an employee, because of a technical problem, or because they just don't think that you're supporting them.
Depends on the degree of how they're getting in your face. I mean, if it's disrespectful, it's a matter of you have a good day and you find somebody else to support you. If it's a not disrespectful and it's more of a because of the situation or a misunderstanding or whatever the case can be, you know, obviously, as Chris says, it depends, but it's one of those where you got to figure out what is the real reason, like what's the actual issue. Like, are they mad about X? So what is X? And then you address X and you remove the emotion out of it. Even though some of us may be emotional, and then getting into your face like that is going to be hard. If you find yourself in a position where you can't handle that, you need to gracefully take some time to yourself to kind of put yourself together and go back to attack the issue rather than attacking to the customer. I had in my early days, I actually had that happen once or twice in a shouting match with a client. And at the end of it, realized that the only one that loses is you. So because the way that word spreads around online, along with their networks, depending on which industry that you're trying to get into, it's one of those where you really got to check yourself at the door and really figure out. And who knows, you may be going through some stuff too that just amplifies that. But if you're going into there, you got to kind of reassess yourself and kind of just understand that you have to address X, whatever that issue is that's causing the problem.
Cool. Thanks, Paco. Marvin.
Chris, I didn't think you had irate customers.
I do deal with Americans.
Oh, ouch.
Doesn't offend me. We'll just take all your celebrities and bring them down here. So the one thing that I have always tried to portray is, depending on the situation, for instance, if it's a customer yelling at a tech, you know, the stance has always been my techs don't deal with certain situations. They don't deal with customers yelling. They don't deal with customers upset. They don't deal with money issues. They don't deal with any of that. Their job is to go there, fix the problem, get out. And if there's an issue, the customer calls me. From my perspective, I've always taken the position that I don't ever get into a shouting match with a customer. I don't ever get into a pissing contest with a customer. And I don't ever get into one of these tit for tat, who's smarter contests with my customer. So the bottom line is I will let the customer vent to a point, and then I'll try to, respond to them as best I can without shouting back. If it ever gets to the point where I have to shout back, we're done. But what I do is try to explain that to them up front, that they are never going to treat me or my techs or my office staff in a disrespectful manner. And that doesn't just include yelling at them. That includes the way they treat them. I've had a customer hang up on my secretary in the middle of a call. Technically my wife, but for all practical purposes, my secretary.
Sure.
And I've called that company back and said that will never happen again. And if it does, you can say goodbye to our support. And that was it. That's the only way I said it. And to be honest, that has never happened again from that customer. And I've been with them probably 8 or 9 years. Now, there still gets to be testy times, but they know that there's a line that they cannot cross.
Right.
But I mean, that's it. I mean, it's just, if it's something where they're upset for a really good reason, like we broke something, then we basically do everything we can to make it right before they get to that point. And, we're always the first ones to say, hey, look, got to tell you, your system didn't come back up after that restart. We'll take care of it. I know it's upsetting. I know it's frustrating. We'll take care of it. And that's as far as in terms of philosophy, how I handle it, but
that's good.
Yeah. Awesome. What about you, John?
I would suggest I have very little to add what either one said, but I guess I'd take the customer out of the equation and say, I like to treat the other people how I would like to be treated. And I think we've talked about it on here before with some understanding that, you may not know why they're lashing out at you. There might be another reason why they're lashing out on you. You just happen to be convenient. But with what B said, there's got to be some level of, respect in your relationship that goes both ways. Sometimes the best thing you can do if things are getting out of hand is maybe saying, well, I'll call you back later, and just hang up, to give everybody 30 seconds to cool down, or a minute, or 15 minutes, or 30 minutes. But I think the best way to avoid all that is just honest communication, is if you can keep that in front of the clients. And I'm kind of lucky with most of my clients. They're pretty long-term, and we pretty much have an understanding that I'm working as hard for them as if it were my business, because their success leads to my success. But maybe just have an understanding that you want to treat them like you want to be treated, and vice versa.
Can I add a caveat back to that? Because something you just said, John, brought to my attention. There are times where I've had to say to a firm administrator or to an owner of a business that I've had to remove myself because I was getting to a point where I didn't want to deal with their employee. And rather than go off on the employee, I tell the firm administrator or the owner, I said, look, I got to go. I'm going to go count to 10. That'll probably take me until tomorrow, and then I'll get back to you. So you're right. It does go both ways, that there are times where in our frustration, because I've had a tech who just in the past did not know how to control himself, and would just, start letting his frustrations out openly, verbally, and even cursing, to the point where I said, look, you will not do that in front of a customer.
Yeah.
And so it does go both ways.
It definitely adds an extra level of complexity when you have employees involved, like your own techs.
Or just working with other vendors. I mean,
yeah.
there are times where I remember for one of my law firm clients, this young kid who has a website development company was doing his website, and I guess my client gave him access to the domain to change. I forgot what it was. They changed. I think it was the name servers, and he's on a hosted exchange, and changed the name servers, brought down his emails from coming up, so they couldn't figure it out, whatever the case may be. And there was this long email chain, and I basically championed the email, because everybody was pointing fingers versus getting the email up. So as I was doing that and kind of putting it out there, like, hey, look, this got changed, I don't know what's set, I wasn't really throwing them under the bus. Essentially, hey, this is what changed, this needs to go back. And just the whole big conversation, and the conversation turned to an argument, and it went to the point where I just hung up on the guy, called my client. I said, yeah, we're probably going to have to make sure that we do all communications with this guy via written email, and you're copied, because I will not have a conversation with this guy again, because it will not be pretty. And that's kind of where you got to figure out take your battles, because again, your client hired this person for whatever odd reason. So you got to work with them whether you like them or not. So.
Very good.
Jeff, you got anything to add there?
Well, I live in the Detroit area, so brandishing works for me.
Turn on your body cam first.
That's right. I got to turn on the body cam first. No, I agree with what everybody said. And usually if you talk to somebody, it's always match tone for tone, right? If somebody's yelling or they're irritated or they're upset, if you bring the tone down and just calm it right down, 9 times out of 10, that person's going to bring their level down. And it might take a couple minutes, but usually you can bring them back in and reel them back in and have a conversation. But I agree with everybody else. If it gets to the point where it's escalating, yeah, I'm not gonna get into a yelling match or anything like that. I will turn it, walk away, and we'll deal with it another day. So,
this kind of circles back. All these comments circle back to, at least in my business, I very rarely have a shouting match with anybody or anything like that. But let's just call it a high stress level. Most of that comes back to what Paco brought up. And I try to tell all my customers all the time, if we just spent 2 minutes on planning something before you just jumped in and changed it, you know, or asked a couple of questions of everybody that just might be involved with technology or something that's going on in your office, this could have been totally avoided. We could have done this without anybody even knowing, and probably cost you a lot less money. And look, nobody would be on the phone shouting at each other. So,
right.
I don't know how you communicate that in the end to your clients. I've not successfully done that in all the years I've been in business, but I keep trying.
That's because the clients don't listen. They just nod their head and go, yes, I understand. And what they really mean is, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Pretty much.
Put a little sign on everything that says, if you touch this, it'll cost you. I don't know. Like I found that I have a really hard time dealing with employees at a business. Not that I can't deal with it, but it's that they make this assumption that you know, you're being paid to provide that company a service, and therefore you're lower than them. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened quite a bit. And I've gotten to the point where I've tried to, in a multi-person company, I try to have one contact person, and that's the person that I deal with. That's the person that puts in the tickets. That's the person that deals with all the communication. And I find that winds up avoiding a lot of that type of conflict because I build a pretty good relationship with that contact person. I don't know if that's something that you'd really be able to do, John, but it's, I don't know. It's worked for me.
I would highly suggest that's a great tip. Usually most of the problems do not occur when you have that point of contact because, you know, they develop that relationship of trusting you. So they ask about everything, even if they're sure that they say, hey, I was going to do this and we've done it before, but do you think it's okay? Usually it's when somebody outside of that circle just does something. You know, usually it's the business owner or somebody like that that just jumps in and says, oh, I did this because we saved $10 a month. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you're right. And that person that you, after a little while, they start taking it on themselves, like it's their responsibility to make sure that nobody messes with what you've done. Right. So, you know, I'll suddenly get a panicked email like, okay, they went out and bought this new computer without saying anything to me. What do I do? It's like, it's fine. Thanks for letting me know. You know, here's the link. This will install everything. I'll check it out from there.
Well, you kind of become an advocate for both of you.
Yeah.
You know, they got your back, you got their back, blah, blah, blah.
I do have to say though that I'm lucky because, you know, I've done a lot of customer service jobs before I became a technician. You know, the most recent one that kind of deals with all of this is I was a retention agent for Bright House Networks for the Tampa area. Which, you know, taught me how to deal with screaming people. And what I found is that, you know, I don't have, like, you know, Jeff talks about, you know, bringing your tone down. I don't have a tone down. Okay. This is the tone that I have all the time. But what I do find is that, you know, it hardened me to the point where I'm fine unless you're abusing my employees. I don't tolerate that. You know, if that begins happening, then that call gets transferred to me. It doesn't matter where I am. And now you're dealing with me, you know, and good luck getting extras out of me. I mean, you know, Jeff, when's the last time you heard of me giving somebody a credit just because they were mad?
I don't remember you giving credits for anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm fair. You know what? That's a different discussion. But the second thing really though that it's done is it's taught me where my line is. Right. I do not deal with abuse. If somebody's lashing out, I'll let them lash out. They'll wind themselves down and then they apologize after. That's what happens 99% of the time. If I finish a conversation with somebody and then I get another phone call from them or I get an email from them that has that same abusive tone, congratulations, here's your 30 days notice. I won't be working with you anymore because I won't work with somebody that's out to abuse the people supporting them.
You know, Chris, out of the whole panel, you should have the least problem with this out of everybody because you should just practice the Canadian mantra of "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
You don't get mad in Canada.
Wait, I don't get mad, John. I get even. No, you know what? Sometimes I'm sorry though doesn't really fix anything, right? I mean, you joke around about it, but we do. We apologize for everything, whether it's our fault or not. I'm a little bit more careful with that because I don't want to take the legal liability of apologizing for something that I really had nothing to do with. But you know, it's true, right? There are some people when you apologize to them, I don't want your apology. I want this fixed an hour ago. Right. So, you know, like I said, it's just, if it comes down to abuse, I'm not going to tolerate that. You get one warning. I'll set that expectation. If this continues, we're done. But that's it. Right. Once you set that expectation with the client, if they continue along with it, that's obviously not the client for you.
Absolutely.
Agree.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to another topic, and let's go ahead and let's pick on Mr. Marvin Bee. What do you got for us?
So, for those of you guys that don't have a fluke, no, sorry, different
Really?
topic.
Again?
Here's the only thing that I guess I wanted to bring up for a question is, when you guys are setting expectations for your customers, how far are you going with setting the standards, not just for, you know, your customer in terms of here's what you're paying for, here's what I'm providing, but how much leeway are you giving them if things come up in the future that don't fall into your contract, if you're calling it that, or your service agreement or stuff like that? And what I'm asking by that is, you know, we've pretty much always done something where we will maintain the systems that we buy for you. We will maintain the backup that we provide for you or we support. And we will provide this antivirus, this managed service, or whatever. But of course, customers now are, you know, Googling their way into tech knowledge, that they want to try this and they want to try this and they want to buy these machines. And I've, you know, told people, I said, you can buy whatever you want. I may not support it.
Mm.
And so we're getting into that line where I've got a couple of customers that are starting to do that, but still wanting us to provide that support for them and maintain it. So I want to rein that in. But in terms of you guys on the panel today, what are your thoughts and suggestions, or how do you handle that?
Well, you're emceeing, Marvin. Who's starting?
Let's start with John, because John has a very similar business and deals with the. You're still doing the all-inclusive plan, correct, John?
I do. And I subscribe to the Matt Rainey theory on contracts. Not to put any words in his mouth. I don't know exactly how he does it, but over on Podnutz Pro, you know, he talks about not having any. I do not have, quote unquote, a written contract, nor do I have a guaranteed response time. My only thing that I put in front of my customers, both legally, personally, and all of that, is best effort is what I provide. And I try to back that up in everything I do. And the way that I handle what Marvin is talking about is, if the scope of what we discuss when we get started, and they, you know, they do get a little paperwork at the start that says, hey, here's what we're subscribing to. This is what you and I talked about. You know, this is what I'm going to support. But if, let's say they grow, let's say we add 5 new users, obviously I'm going to knock on that business owner's door and say, hey, you owe me some more money. Your pricing's going up, so on and so forth. Or same thing, if they shrink. I do not have any long-term contracts. Everything I do is build month to month to month. So just frankly, to build trust, meaning you can leave me at any time you want. And therefore, just like Chris would say, I will leave you at any time I want as well, based on your performance as a customer. But really, the way I address what Marvin is saying is the exact same way that he just said. If you're going to bring that into the office, or it's just something surprisingly that you're calling about. Have I told my my lock story? My security story?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Here's a great example, I think, of what he's talking about. So I believe it was a Monday morning, I get a call. One of my oldest clients, and again, this goes back to what we were just talking about. She calls, the office manager calls and says, hey, I can't get in the office. And I'm like, first thing in my head is, why are you calling me? Because you can't get in. And then I'm thinking, well, I have keys to the office. I said, oh, what'd you do? Forget your keys at home? And she said, no, the security fob's not working. And I'm like, what security fob? So little did I know that Friday afternoon and into Saturday, did they get a new security system installed that is all plugged into the network and uses fancy key fobs and magnetic door locks, blah, blah, blah. Well, just like copier guys, the security guys put the security system computer on the exact same IP address as another piece of equipment. So everything worked for a little bit of time, but over a Sunday or whatever happened, they went to key in and they could not get in the building. So, suddenly, they couldn't get in the building, and all of a sudden that became a support call for me because the security system company said they couldn't get to their computer. So that engaged a conversation that said, hey, I'm happy to help you with the security system, but if you want me to support that, I'm either going to be your tier 2 support because it needs to be configured on the network. We're going to have to add that as another PC into the pricing that we do, so on and so forth. But, more and more, I think to what Bee's story is, more and more things are touching our network, meaning security systems, not just the copiers and printers and all that, but now we've got VoIP phone systems, we've got camera systems, we've got all of these things that are now on the network that we get more and more calls about. So I'm adding those as I'm either the tier 2 support, I'll help you support the network because that's what I do. But if you want me to support those products, then we're going to have to talk about more money. So,
okay. Chris, what about you?
Well, I do use written contracts for my business clients, and this is going to sound really boring, but I'm going to do this. Section 4, Part I. The provider shall not be obligated, blah, 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 right? And I always point this out to them. Firestorms, accidents, unauthorized attempts by anybody but the provider to repair equipment. Just to paraphrase a little bit more, any changes to the network that I didn't know about. The customer will always, the customer will not modify, create, or implement anything into the network without my permission. And that's what covers me in a situation like that, where it doesn't matter if I'm providing somebody with unlimited network support for the network that they have. If they turn around and put in a key fob system and don't bother telling me before they do it, then I can't take a preventative step, right? Okay, let's create an IP range for that equipment. That's it. It would have taken 2 minutes. That would have been free. But if you've gone ahead and installed it, that's a paid call. And that's part of the contract, and they know that. So, I always make sure that that's very clear and that I've set that expectation with the owner. Whether the employees know that afterwards is not really anything that I can do anything about after the fact, though.
Okay. Mr. Paco?
So since I'm kind of new into the whole dealy for the past 7 months, our work orders are kind of set up for on-demand whenever they have issues. There isn't a contract per se created as of yet. What we do is we do provide a document for scope of work. So depending on what the project is, workstation, server migration, networking installation, very big projects like that will put scope of work and then any maintenance on top of that. And then essentially it'll just be billed every month from that scope of work. Anything that's outside of the scope of work that is in that document that's signed between the both of us, it gets charged to whatever our hourly rate is for that particular client. So,
okay. Now, the only thing I have to add to all this stuff is that from my standpoint, and I used to be one of these wishy-washy, here's kind of what we're going to do for you, but if you bring something in, that's okay, or you do something else, that's okay, we'll fix it. Well, I'm still kind of that way. But the difference is now I just charge accordingly. So there's a price that's always going to make everything worthwhile, and I can be bought. Just people, if you want to send me money, I can be bought. just go ahead and give it a try. So to me, when I look at, as far as from what I do, and a lot of smaller businesses, when I walk into a business, I don't necessarily have where I'm supplying all the Dell computers or HP computers or whoever your server of choice is for that stuff. So I'm using whatever's there. And I've usually got to deal with it, one-on-one.
Perry has a great solution in the chat, which I'll put in the show notes.
Okay. And we'll talk about that in a sec. But Marvin, from your standpoint, do you not want to use any other computers other than what you're already providing for them?
Do I want to? No. So
well, can you make it worth your while, I guess is the point.
Sure, we can. I mean, you just add on the right amount of money. Yeah, we'll take care of it for you within reason. Now, I'm not going to go and support, a Linux server, and not because Linux is good or bad, is because that's outside of my regular scope of work.
Sure.
I'm not, unless you want to pay me to go learn Linux also, then I'm not going to do that. So I've offered that to customers. If they want to bring in something new and I've got to go learn it, then it's not something where, I'm going to take it upon myself to incur those learning curve costs. They've got to foot that, for us. So that's taken a lot of that away. It's more the sense of people wanting to BYOE, bring their own everything, where they think that there's a level of stuff that they should be able to do regardless of the fact that we're managing their network. And they'll just call us if they run into problems. And so what I've had to do is say, you know what? I'm going to say, first of all, that you should not do that. The reason we're managing your network is to make those things easier for you and make it all work properly. But if you're going to do that, if somebody's going to try, which is happening more and more, where an employee wants to download their own version of some software and install it themselves, and they get to a point where they realize they can only get so far, either because they don't have admin rights or they don't have enough knowledge of network, and they want to call and say, hey, can you tell me how to finish this? Yeah, but you're going to get a bill.
Absolutely.
Or no, tell me what you're trying to do. I'll do it, and I'll send you the bill. And then when they get the bill, they're always like, well, why is that? I mean, this should have been something they should be able to do. I said, well, obviously it wasn't. And as Dubinsky said, the Matt Rainey School of Network Administration, well, it must have been advanced. So you're getting an advanced networking fee on top of that.
That's right. Triple charge it, baby. Triple charge it.
Well, I would suggest we're partners with our customers, but there becomes a point when you get taken advantage of because we're just so damn good,
Yep.
And you just want to be careful with that. I'm happy to help a customer.
Yes.
And frankly, bend over backwards. But there's some point where, you got to draw the line in the sand.
Well, communication really should be 9/10 of the law. It's not, but it should be. And you have to have that communication back and forth, or things do slip through the cracks and things do happen. And then and that's to try to get it through a customer's mind or a client's mind that we're actually there to try to help them and make it better. Now, we're not just, I can overcharge you and that's fine. And I'll make more money that way. But that's not what I'm here to do. I really don't want to do that. I want to work with stuff that I know. And so we can do this on a regular basis. You can be up and running, and we don't have all these little things that touch the network that I have no control over, so that when it breaks, I'm coming in and I'm charging you all kinds of money when we could have just had it up and running. Hey, what do you need done? Tell me. Let me figure out the solution.
I call that the uptime conversation.
Uptown?
Uptime.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm singing in my head. Never mind.
You go uptown, we'll go downtown. So
right.
the other thing is what I've implemented is to tell the customers, look, if it needs to plug into the wall or if it needs access to the internet, call me.
Mm-hmm.
Just before you do anything, call me.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, like John's situation and Chris has mentioned, those little emergencies that pop up because somebody didn't talk to somebody else ahead of time, that's a charge. In my book. If somebody did something that, made an IP conflict or made something else stop working, that's not my problem. I mean, it is my problem, but it's your charge.
Absolutely.
It's not your fault, but it's your problem.
Right.
All right, very cool. All right, let's see. So let's go ahead and go to Mr. Dubinsky. And what kind of topic do you have for us?
All right, gentlemen, sharpen your pencils. Let's wake up a little bit. The biggest problem you are facing in your business right now, and what are you doing about it?
Oh, God. Golly, just brought out the bin guns.
I give you 15 seconds to contemplate. Jeff, you're up first.
Dude. The biggest problem is it's always going to be this. It's time. Time. And what am I doing about it?
Be a little more specific.
Well, as far as being able to do anything in my business wise, whether it's take care of a customer, whether it's to be able to work in my business and not, or work in my business, not work on my business, not in my business. Those are the types of things that I just, from my standpoint, and with all the things I have going on, time is a something that I really don't have. And here's the other thing too. And it's funny you brought this up, John, because we had talked a few weeks ago about doing Google calendaring, to-do lists, and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of went back to that. I don't know if you listened to last couple weeks.
I listened.
Okay. So anyways, we went and I put everything in my calendar and realized that on a week-to-week basis, I have like 0 hours of personal time. And that's not even, I couldn't even include like fixing computers or doing anything in my business.
I have a question for you.
So there's a problem there.
How are you booking that in your calendar? Are you doing it by hour, half hour, or are you booking it by minute?
Oh, no, it's usually by hour. So there's usually a little fluff in there as far as when I have a task to do.
Right.
It's normally an hour, depending on the task.
You know how many bathroom breaks Jeff takes.
Yeah, I mean, if the wind blows, I got to go.
So the reason why I ask is because I used to do the same thing, and what I am starting to do is book my time by minute. So what I'm doing now is doing 5-minute increments on how long is it really going to take me to do that. And what I found is I'm giving myself too much fluff time. And what ends up
now, and I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And what I've found is I'm not giving myself enough time.
Well, in essence, like we talk about, disassembling a laptop, right?
Yes.
Me and you both said, I say, it probably will take me about 30 to 45 minutes. And you're like, that's ridiculous. It takes me 10 to 15.
Right.
That's a good example of I blocked out 45 minutes, but in reality, it only takes me 15. What am I doing with that other 30? I'm looking up something. I'm writing something here. I'm answering my phone. That's essentially the fluff time. But I just was curious as far as how that's being booked, because I know that a lot of us tend to do it by hour, half hour. If you look at it on a minute increment, you can probably squeeze a little bit more in.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Here's the problem with that, though, and here's what I would caution people against. I'm not sure that you want to fill up 100% of your time with just working. And let me give a couple caveats to this. Okay, so when I went back and scheduled, obviously I work a full-time job, overtime, all that kind of stuff. And I went in, now family time's in there, time with my wife, all these different things I have put in the calendar. The one thing that I am missing, now some people would go, it's not a big deal. The one thing I'm missing is like 0 personal time to do anything I want to do. If I want to go play Hitman and, disguise myself and take out a couple bad guys, I want to be able to do that. And the reality is, with all the things I have going on, there's always seasons of life. So this is a busy season. I'm sure I'll get past this, but going back to what John was talking about, it's just, and I think time would be a number one thing for a lot of people to try. And just like Paco said, how do I segment that time so I can make sure that I'm filling enough of it, but also not leaving enough gaps where Facebook messaging and all this kind of stuff becomes my norm on those in-between times. Squirrel.
Right.
Facebook.
All right, I can't let you off the hook that easy. Time's too easy of an answer. I think all of us could probably say that. So let's say you did have 5 hours a week of extra time, not just for your time, but let's limit it to business time. What would you do with that?
What would I do with that? I would actually use and discover more products and services. I would get into doing more networking on my own network, which I have an awesome network set up here. Have I played with it? No. Do I want to play with it? Yes.
All right, so you're stealing my thunder. That would be my answer.
Oh,
no, seriously. Baby. I need more time to, I would suggest, master the tools I use.
Yes.
See, and what's my argument with that phrase, and I used to use it all the time, is I don't have time. I don't have time. What I've done that's really improved what I do now is I changed the phrase, and I've talked about this before. I changed the phrase "I don't have time" with "It's not a priority."
Well, there's no doubt you make the time for the things you want to have.
Correct.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So I mean, and once you start internalizing that, and when you say something and you switch it out with, perfect example, my kid wanted to go to the movies Friday, but I really had a lot of work to do. The work is important, but the phrase "I didn't have time," I said, "It's not a priority to take my daughter to the movies," did not sound right. And whenever you say that phrase and it does not sound right, you need to readjust your priorities. So guess what? We went to the movies.
There you go.
So
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100% with you there.
So
Yep, definitely is a mind shift change.
What movie was it? Atomic Blonde?
What was it?
What movie? Atomic Blonde?
no, God no.
The Emoji movie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not taking my 7-year-old to see a Charlize Theron movie.
Carruthers, you're out, buddy.
That's me. Personal time was anyway until quite recently a huge issue for me. Mainly spending time with the family outside of work. I mean, we've found ways around that. We use the drive-in rather than going to the actual movie theater. That comes with having a baby, though, right? It's hard to go to the movies with that. Making sure that I schedule in personal time for myself, which is something that I had been neglecting to do. I have an office that I go to every Tuesday to do all of my paperwork, to make sure that that's all up to date. So I'm not, sitting in my living room at 9 o'clock at night when I should be spending time with wife. So there are a lot of small steps that I've taken to be able to really open that up. And it's continuing to improve.
I don't know about that, Chris, because I see your Steam account popping up an awful lot.
Okay, so two things I want to say to that. The first one is that we have to remember that my 8-year-old also plays games on my Steam account. The other thing that we have to remember is that Elite Dangerous, unless you close the third screen too, it shows you playing it. So I have probably 100 and something hours logged into that game that isn't real.
Gotcha.
Just saying.
I do have something from the chat room. I want to read this real quick. We were talking about this, and this is from K-Rosa72. Jeff, with your finances, they always pay yourself first, save, then pay bills, right? Yep. Do the same with your time. First schedule time for you and the family, is that should be the first priority, then schedule everything else. If I had 36 hours in a day, no problem. The only place that I could actually pull that from is sleep. And that is one of the things that I've added to, because I don't want to be a grumpy grumpkins on a daily basis, because it's not fun.
And the difference between that now
and hours, you would just fill 36 hours. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I know. I agree. And the richest guys in the world say you always pay yourself first. And it's easy to say with priorities that you want to put the priorities that you have. Thanks,
thanks, Marvin. Says, what about trips to the barber? Yeah, I save myself trips to the barber every day when or every other day when I shave. I just take the clippers and anyways. John, go ahead.
Of course, there's always priorities of family and all that first. There's no doubt about that. Family, friends, whatever priorities you want to put first in are important to you. There's no doubt about that. But, at some point, there's also that thing that rolls in called responsibility. We all just talked about, our customers first and what kind of SLAs or best effort we're putting forth. So if the server dies and you've got plans that weekend, and if you're a solo tech, I mean, your priority is to your family, but your priority is also put on the food on the table. So you gotta balance that. I'm not saying K-Rosa is wrong in any way, but you also have to deal with the realities of life and the cruel mistress that she can be.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Taz says Jeff definitely needs his beauty sleep. Thanks, Taz. Appreciate that. All right.
I think you're a pretty handsome man, Jeff.
Thank you, John. I apprate that.
I would go with beast sleep, but that's this one.
Not quite as cute as B, but you're pretty handsome.
Well, can't beat the beaster there.
All right, Paco, you're up.
Cash flow.
Actually, okay. As much. Sorry, guys, I got to jump in here for a second. We are coming up to 5, so I am going to have to run. Do we have a second though to
Please
announce our winner?
Yes, let's go. You got the email?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Let's take a quick
so-
station break and we'll come back to this conversation and Paco can start off. So Chris has been putting on a contest for the last 6 weeks. Chris, tell us about it.
All right. So the contest was for everybody to email in the top 5 reasons why they feel that a ticketing system should be used. The winner of this contest, it's going to get some free time on our ticketing system. We're going with 6 months. Now the winner of our contest is Russell. So Russell, when you hear this, I'm sure you're going to know that this is from your email. I'm going to be getting in contact with you shortly to set up your account. The top 5 reasons to use a ticketing system is to document each computer regarding serial numbers, parts that were replaced, and which processes were taken to fix the issue. Keep your customers and clients happy with regular updates on their computer. Accurate invoicing, making sure you bill everyone properly and allows you to retrace your steps in the event revenue doesn't add up. Keeps you on track so you don't get distracted by other important things like video games. I think we all need to talk about that again, right, Jeff? And having parts and invoices documented really comes in handy during tax season. So thank you, everyone, for your submissions. And again, Russell, I'll be contacting you shortly.
Cool. Awesome. Great job. Thanks for doing that, Chris, and appreciate that. All right, Chris, you got to run. And if you want to tell people real quick where they can find you at, and we'll let you get on out of here.
Sure. You can visit our website at rstechteam.com. Give us a call, 866-568-2813, or send us an email at info@rstechteam.com.
Awesome, man. Appreciate having you, and you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey, Chris.
All right, now that he's gone, thank God.
Now the fun can happen.
Now, I know I can say that out loud because I know he'll never listen to the show because he was on it. So, but if he does, it'll be quite funny. Anyways, all right. So, Paco, you're up.
Oh, we weren't joking. Oh,
Cash flow. Cash flow.
So cash flow is the issue that I'm running into with my business. So essentially, I'm trying to ensure everything is stable. However, the problem I run into is everything is drips and drabs. So essentially, I'm on a job by job versus getting the contracts to pay monthly. So getting those recurring contracts has learned to become difficult. And the reason why they're becoming difficult is I have clients that are interested, is to nail them down to a time to discuss the services or what their businesses are going to need. So I've been having a couple clients that I need to pin down so I can schedule a day, talk about the services, let them know how much it's going to be, and then we can go ahead and start moving forward. But until then, that's the problem that I'm running into right now, is that I'm getting a lot of jobs, but there's no consistency on how that's going to be a going trend as the months go on. So that's the problem with I am dealing with.
And what are you doing about it?
I'm hitting him even harder to try to pin him down for a time. I mean, there's nothing better to do than just keep on them about it. Like they say, usually you have to follow up like 7 times in order for them to be like, hey, this is what's going on, And again, they have stuff going on their side. So it's just a matter of making sure they just don't forget you, but at the same time, not to be annoying, so they can just say, forget you altogether. So that's kind of where the dance I'm playing with right now.
All right. And Marvin, what do you got to say to that? I know you got some sage advice there of what to do for cash flow.
I don't know if I can answer that properly. Because here's the thing with cash flow. You've got to identify where the issue really is. Is it cash flow because you're spending too much? In which case, it doesn't matter what you're bringing in. If it's not enough, it's not enough. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, which is a problem that I dealt with early on, well, I guess we probably still do it today, is are we not getting invoices out promptly and accurately? And the reason I have to say that is you can get invoices out promptly. That's really, everybody can do that to some degree. If you put a schedule together, each invoices accurately, I think is the biggest thing. Where one of the biggest problems that we had here, let me rephrase that. One of the biggest problem I had is because I do things a little bit differently. I don't make all of my customers pay for parts up front. A lot of my customers are businesses, and they're used to paying in some sort of, accounts payable cycle. They'll pay, they want a sales order first, then they'll, do their purchase order on their side, then they'll pay off of that, or they'll pay an invoice, plus 30 days or whatever. And so a lot of times I will purchase a lot of inventory up front. I know a lot of techs can't do that. Solo techs, small shops, not able to do that. I was able to get into a position where I had a lot of credit with my distributors and a lot of business credit where I could do that. So I would lay out a lot of money up front. The problem I would run into is that a project may take me 2 weeks or a month. And then when we got around to actually billing them, we would miss bill.
Ooh.
So I would have a situation where I'd bill a customer, 10 grand for an installation when it really should have been 11 grand because we didn't properly document either a part that came in. And, with our system, when we have inventory come in, we can, have a line item that says this item is billed to this customer. And that way, when we get ready to do their invoice, all their stuff should come up. Well, I had no system to go back and double check everything that we're bringing in. Are we, tying that to a customer? So that was our issue with cash flow, where we would miss some things. And sometimes they'd be pretty big things. If you miss billing a customer a half an hour, it may not be a big deal. If you miss billing them half an hour every month, that'll start to add up. So cash flow is such a huge deal that, I've had to come up with systems to address it from all perspectives. I've got to know what I'm spending expense-wise and make sure that that gets charged back to the customer. Things like our RMM, all of our tools, Ninite, password programs, all of that stuff. That all had to be redirected to a category called client cost instead of just expenses. Because technically we don't attribute those to a specific customer, do we? But they do have to go to customer somehow. So I know that I've probably just, broadened the question a lot more, but I think that the question of cash flow is, from both sides. What is it that's going out that we're making sure we're accounting for? And what is it that we're billing and getting in that's covering all of that? And what systems do you have in place to keep track from all different sides?
That's good. Yeah, it's again, it's like one of those unicorns and rainbows like time. No, but I think the first thing is to basically start thinking about how you can get proper cash flow for your type business, whatever it is you're doing, and the adjustments you can make along the way. And some of it's going to be a learning process. We're all still learning. I
also think it do the age of your business. I think a lot of the tips that I've heard you give, Jeff, is at the beginning, just worry about getting customers before you get all those fancy, expensive tools. Yep. Paco's pretty sage in what he does, meaning, Paco talks about systems and improving systems and all that kind of stuff. So he's got his eye on that all the time. Probably Paco, and I'm simply guessing on this, due to the age of Paco's business, he may not have the book of business yet to allow him to manage cash flow with what he's doing. Or perhaps he's, somebody might have a transition where they lose their biggest client and all of a sudden they're scrambling for cash flow on that sort of thing. So, even though your cash flow looks great today, I would always suggest you may want to do some sort of scenario where maybe you lose your two best clients. And it may not be your fault. It may be that they get acquired. It may they close. Somebody may retire. So just keep your, how many marbles you're going to have in one basket, all that sort of thing.
If you think about it too, like this, is that when we're talking about cash flow, and you think about the different types of businesses or different types of jobs that you could have, if you look at things like sales, a salesperson is getting paid a lot. I mean, not in every situation, but a lot on commission. And so their month to month goes high and low. Car salesman, you know. So you look at all these different types of businesses, people are doing it, and you want to get to that point where you have that possible or that positive cash flow where you've got the recurring revenue and all that kind of stuff. But that takes time, and you might have to do the break fix model and go out there and just capture the customers one at a time. And you're going to, in this business, it's going to be ebbs and flows, ups and downs. That's the way it is until you do get yourself established with those business clients that can bring you that other portion. But I think a lot of times, especially what John said, and I've seen this happen in people's businesses, is that they will have one or two large clients that cover like 70% of their revenue. If something happens to one or the other, all of a sudden they're like, now what do I do?
Because just like Jeff, don't spend too much on haircuts.
That's right.
You're up. And you're not allowed to use your move.
Well, I won't use my move, but I'm going to say right now, that's my biggest problem is I've got this young pup in here thinking he's a tech. And no, sorry, that's just my nephew. That's just my nephew. That's he built himself a computer this summer while he was down, so he's playing.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
So my biggest problem. So I think my problem is kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about with Paco in terms of managing cash flow. I'm in a surplus the other way. My business is 59% ahead of where it was last year. And that's in terms of income, that's in terms of hours, that's in terms of stuff we're doing for customers. So my big thing is sustaining growth.
Managing that growth.
Managing growth.
Yes.
And so I'm looking at a whole bunch of different things where, you know, I've got to make sure all of my systems are in place. And can I bring on, you know, either another 1099 employee to assist, which is what I've been doing over the past few years, or do I bring on that full-time person again, go back into having employees where I can have that employee take a little bit of the load off, but still keep all of my systems and my cash flow stuff in place. So I'm still making the money. And so that's my biggest thing. So what am I doing about it? Well, obviously you see this glorious new space. I'm preparing as much as I can. So the surplus that I'm having, we're putting steps in place that I've got room where, if, you know, even if I don't bring in a full-time person, I have space for a subcontractor to come in maybe an hour a day and do something for me. Or if I need to have a tech come and, you know, pick up stuff or whatever, the stuff is here, it's ready to go. I've got room to put in a couple of tech benches. So, you know, if I've got to put together 10 systems for a customer, I've got the space to do it. I've got a front area that you can't see for, you know, the gatekeeper and all that stuff. And so that's, you know, in a sense, phase one is the building and all of that. Phase two is the systems that go in behind it. You know, my management tools, are they clicking the way that they should? You know, am I able to respond to the alerts as they come in? And if not, can I bring somebody in quickly who can do it for me and be just as effective so that I'm not wasting time and money paying somebody to lose me money, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Because I'm not going to bring on a tech and then, you know, go from being in the black to being in the red. So that's where I'm at.
Is there anything you hate doing in your business?
Whoa. Is that your question?
That's my question. I'm talking to Marvin.
Oh.
No, is there anything you that you would rather not do? I mean, obviously we all have our things that we like and things that are like, and things that are like, oh man, I really don't feel like doing that.
I don't think I can answer that properly because Here's the thing. I didn't get into the tech business because I love tech. I'm not one of these geeky guys that I love computers, and so I just found a way to make money doing it. I just fell into computers because I was good at it. I found a way to make money at it, but there's nothing that I really love about it. I've always taken the position that if it's part of the business, it's just got to get done. So I don't think there's anything I really hate, except maybe from the standpoint of from what I brought up earlier, dealing with customers who want to be their own techs and then just use you, hey, can you help me figure this out? Or can you tell me how to do it myself? That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be like the auto mechanic who will, hook up with you on the weekend to help you rebuild a carburetor. Ain't happening. I'm not going to show a customer how to build a server and, but now the standpoint is they're like, oh, well, you should help us do stuff and then we'll still come to you. And, or they'll make the phrase, you're just afraid of losing money. Well, that may be true, but this is how I eat. This is how I have, just like, I tell them, just like you have to eat yourself for law firms, especially where I'm like, well, are you going to let your customers, go to, what is that website? The,
LegalZoom or something like that.
LegalZoom.com and do their forms and then only bring you in just to double check.
Right.
So that's probably, that's the closest thing I think I have to not liking the business is, everybody assumes that the computer business, they don't assume, but they just think it's not a real business. I can just go to Google and figure it out, but I wanted to ask you because it'd be quicker. Well, then pay me for being quicker.
The problem is that goes back to troubleshooting 101. And quite honestly, there's the majority of people, I hate to say this, it's true, they're really not good at troubleshooting. They know how to follow. They know how to do what they're told. But when it comes to actually figuring things out, just going to Google, if just going to Google is the answer, without any troubleshooting skills, it's going from the frying pan into the fryer. So I don't understand what these people think that they're doing or say, well, they're trying to save time, money, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. But going back to what I was saying earlier, from your standpoint, though, if somebody were to go in and let's say you had a full-time employee and they were able to do all the remote sessions, all the management of when things broke and go in there and just fix those stuff, and you were still able to go out and whip out your fluke on site and do this and, fix things here and there. I mean, would that make life a lot easier where you could probably fill an employee's full amount of time all week long?
Well, the short answer is I could.
Okay.
That's not the issue. The issue is, where do I want the business to go? And do I want to get it to the point where I'm bringing in employees? Because what eventually will happen is I bring in an employee to take the load off of me. I go out, get another customer, and I can bring in another employee. So it's a matter of, do I want to do that? Because what I've kind of done the last few years is I figured out what my level is that is comfortable for me. I'm, not too busy where it's going to burn me out, but I'm making enough money to live and be happy. And by live and be happy, I mean, get my wife a house and a pool.
The important thing.
Yeah, that's the important thing. So now it's, a situation where I haven't really grown in terms of customers, but I've grown in services that I'm providing to those customers. But the potential now is to parlay that into going after more customers. I'm getting referrals. Some of them I'm turning down. Some of them I'm handing off to other techs. So it's a matter of, do I just keep that all to myself now? And where do we go from there? So I haven't quite figured that out yet. Now, it used to be probably 10 years ago. The thought was this. I wanted to be that specialty tech that people called when they had problems. that nobody else could figure out.
Oh, you must be talking about me.
So, but something
That's
where
special needs, Jeff.
it's a different special. So the whole idea, and I know that here's the best way to use it. If there's a problem that can't be solved, people would call me, not because they want, I'm the guy that can handle it. I can show up, I can bring in my fleet of flute tools, figure out the network problems, charge a buttload of money, and get out.
Right.
That was the original, expansion goal. I'd have my techs taking care of the service stuff, taking care of the day-to-day stuff. I would be waiting for that call from some corporate business down the street where their in-house tech department couldn't figure something out. And somehow, there was a way that people knew, hey, if you can't figure it out, call this guy. Yeah, he's going to cost you a lot of money, but he'll figure it out for you.
There you go.
That was the way the business was going to go.
Now, John, I know you went through a few years back, probably right around the first time when I met you, you went through a pruning in your service and you started to get rid of some customers and kind of, narrow that down to get what you were comfortable with as a solo tech. So how did that whole process work for you? And did you actually save yourself any time by doing that?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. I wish Chris was here. Yes, I did prove my business. And I think I probably went by the montage or whatever, that all business is not good business. I used my numbers to lead me. I dropped the clients that I did not like and that were not profitable. All right. And then what I found as a result of that is I was more attentive to my current clients, my good crop of clients. And then suddenly I got some more referrals from their neighbors. And I don't know if that's just timing or if that's just the way it worked. But now I'm back up to pretty close to where I was before. Okay. But I didn't take on any clients that gave me that funny spidey sense.
Right.
I took on clients that I thought were a really good fit or were already in a niche that I already had very good set standards, services, policies, and things set up to work with. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I brought on more dentists. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I didn't suddenly pick up a bar or a restaurant or something like that where they might have different hours or different systems that I wasn't totally familiar with. Dentists are usually 9 to 5, usually closed 1 or 2 days a week, don't work weekends, that sort of thing. I didn't bring on a restaurant, which might be open on the weekends from 9 a.m. till 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. So I tried to stay in my niche and service customers that I like and that I wanted to work with. So I've grown a little bit. I would suggest that, I know for a fact, I think I'm up 15% over last year. I changed some of my billing practices to ease that. I only bill once per month for everything that I do. So sometimes my customers get lucky if they buy a computer I bill on the 15th. So if they buy something on the 16th, they don't get a bill for it for 30 days. But that relieves the pressure on my bookkeeper. And it also really helps me manage my cash flow, back to what Paco said, because I know what's coming. I know when it's coming. And I've worked with all my vendors to get to the point, or if they would not work with me, they are no longer a vendor for me, where I get billed monthly by them with no commitment. So,
okay. Very cool.
So I think that answers your question, but yeah, it worked out good. But, I don't think I'm at the position where B's at, but either I'm going to have to prune again, or I'm going to have to find office space within 900 meters of my front door as well somewhere.
That's right. Yes, that's true. Yes. Marvin, what do you got to do? Walk out your back door and down the street a little bit?
No, I drive, man. It's too hard. It's too hot to walk.
Oh, oh, I got something, and I'm going to keep.
You see the van out there? I mean, the Jeep out there.
I don't know. I see people going by it. People walking by.
Yeah. It's the car washer.
Gotcha. All right. So has everybody had, John, have you talked about your pain point being kind of the same thing, wanting to work on more things and, become a master at the hardware software that you were using?
Well, we've talked about this before. Really what I want to do is get more things automated. I really think that would help me. And I've done a ton of that. I've done I got a ton of scripts that I've written. You know, a lot of that stuff has already happened, or my RMM platform will react to a lot of the things that, you know, I used to have to maybe do a remote session to fix, but, or at least I'm notified and I'm aware of it before it happens so that I can be more proactive instead of reactive. But I want to, you know, we pay a lot of money for the tools we use, whether it be RMM, antivirus, or whatever it is, backup, all that kind of stuff. I want more from it is what I guess I'm asking. You know, I want it to do more for me automatically. I want it to do more for me so that I don't have to do it.
Okay.
And I don't even have the answer to what all those things are. I just know I try to make myself a Google Keep note every time I have a problem to say, hey, how could this fix be automated? Why did I have to do this?
Well, John, it's real easy. Actually, what they're called is unicorns and rainbows is what they are. So it's gold. Yeah, it's just not that. Yeah, never mind. So no, it's good to strive, and things are always becoming better. Processes are becoming better. Automated software, different pieces of hardware out there, they are becoming better, and hopefully, for the most part, do make our lives easier.
Well, you know, we laugh about the MSP model a little bit because, you know, the way that it's portrayed is that, yeah, sorry about that. The way that it's portrayed is, you know, we just sit in our office and the screens are up there and we click 2 buttons and we're done. But I mean, come on, if the internet's down, the router breaks, you got to roll a truck. There's still a lot of things that we can't get out.
Yeah,
which is pretty much common sense to all of us. But
so I'm sorry. So when an MSP, when something breaks,
we have to go fix it.
Oh, they have to go fix it. Oh.
I shouldn't have brought it up. Sorry, B. Sorry, Paco.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like to alleviate everything else as much as possible.
That's right. Hey, make our lives easier. No, I agree. Hey, and you know what? The important part of that is the recurring revenue. That is for a lot of businesses. Very
important. That. Cash flow, baby.
There you go. All right. So, well, let's, we could take a quick break. I can't believe how late it is. Do the rest of you on this panel have a little bit of extra time to answer some emails this week?
Well, wait, Paco didn't ask a question yet. Are we just skipping him?
Did he? Yeah, he did, didn't he? He said cash flow.
No, he answered my question.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sorry.
But before we do that, and Paco, this is totally up to you. If we're at the point of email, I got about a half hour. Do we want to, Paco, do you want to table your question or topic until your next guest appearance? I know you have some information.
Now you let the cat out of the bag.
At the end of the show, you don't have to say it now, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. No, I can table it.
No, go ahead.
No, I
can't find John's T-shirt, so let's move on.
Okay.
No, I mean, the question I was going to ask is essentially when do you know to raise your rates at the end of the year, or if it's at the beginning of the year when you look at your numbers? And second is, how do you know by how much, and what research or what do you do to do that raising of your rates? We'll go with Marvin.
Pick me.
So here's a good clue as to when you should raise your rate. Your customer will tell you. And I'm looking right now for an email that I just got from a customer who told me that make sure that I bill them because I'm not, here it is. So they give me a whole email about some stuff to do. She wants me to do an update for her, and she puts in capital letters, and bill us for this. You are way too generous in how much stuff you do for us for free, and don't make me call and report you to Kim. So that was dated on Friday the 28th at 2:52 p.m. So that's a customer who I actually just put on a service agreement, and they're still saying that I'm charging too low. But the reason is I took over from a previous tech who was charging them. Apparently, I just finally found out that they were actually charging more and getting less. So now in their minds, they're like, okay, well, if we were paying this guy this much, and and you're doing much better than him. You need to pay us at least as much or more. So I'll charge you more.
There you go. John?
I'm going to beat around the bush on this and say there's a lot of different ways to do this. The first thing I would do is, if you're going to raise your rates, depending on the type of customers you're dealing with, is don't ask them, just do it. One way you can do it is in small increments. Raise your rates consistently over a period of time, over a period of year, by small portions. The other thing I would suggest you would do is start billing for things on your invoicing that you might be giving away for free. So, right, if you were fixed fee billing them and including AV and RMM, all in that kind of stuff, break that out now and keep your fee the same, but say now it's an extra $3 per computer to cover your RMM or whatever that is, so that you've taken all that client expense out of your profit. And now that whatever you're billing them for your fixed fee is now pure profit. And the reason I say that you don't ask your clients to raise their rate, that you just invoice them at the higher rate, is most of them, depending on the types of clients they are, would be happy to pay and probably already realize the value you're delivering them. And if they do notice a change and do have questions about that, that is a great way to start a conversation and have them actually listen. If you ever notice, when you go to a client or you try to get a meeting with a client about, well, we need to make this change, or we need to make this improvement, or you need to buy this, or this is failing, a lot of the time they don't make time to listen. So if you raise their rate, you might actually get a call and be able to get some time from that client due to the higher rate. And finally, the last reason I think to raise your rates, or how to raise your rate, is just simply raise your rates on the customers you don't like or no longer want to work with, or you find irritating, into the threshold to the level that suddenly you start like working for them because you're making a lot of money from working with them.
Yeah, you stole mine. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to pull a John Dubinsky. I was just going to pull it out of the air. How much would this be painless to do this for X amount of dollars? And that's exactly
convention advice from last year. You just
that's right. Just pull it out of the air and just go, yep. You know, the other thing too, I think, so, because Paco, you and I have talked about this before, where you might have already existing customers, let's say residential, because business, I think you can do it a little bit easier. Let's say you have residential customers that are on a managed service agreement. I hate even saying that.
An MSA?
Yeah. There you go, an MSA. So they're on your managed services and you're taking care of them for X dollars a month. And maybe you're just providing antivirus. You're really not doing a whole lot for them or whatever. And that's where you kind of started. Well, let's say you want to make that into a more inclusive program where you want to offer these other things, which obviously is more value. Then the other thing you can do is, for the customers moving forward, you can raise those rates, or because everybody has special customers that they probably still today maybe charge a little bit less, or they've been kind of so good customers that they just charge them the same for the last however many years, and they're just good customers. They pay on time. You don't mind helping them. They're not ever in a hurry, those types of things. But I think you can change moving forward, or like John said, which is perfect, you just raise the rate. You either want to pay it or you don't.
I also think that's a great cash flow tool as well, too. The rate you're going to charge, I think the advice I gave at the last unconvention was always bill as much as humanly possible. And that doesn't mean gouge your clients or charge something unreasonable. That just means it charges you as much as your customers will bear based on the service you're giving them, or based on your cash flow needs. The rate you charge might have to be lower if you want to try to get some more clients just to get some cash flow. But keep in mind that might come back at a later time and bite you as you get busier. You don't want to be working 100 hours a week and make $24,000 a year. So, you have to base your cash flow and your billing and your invoicing and your rate on the amount of cash flow you need and your expenses and how many jet skis you want. I don't know.
That's right. And houses.
And pools.
Yeah. And raccoons.
That's right. Cats.
Some dogs, squirrels, birds.
Squirrel.
I don't think he can comment. I think his mic's out.
No, it's here.
All right. All right.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Good question, Paco. Did we answer
Well,
it?
Yeah, I mean, to the most part, it was one of those of trying to understand, like kind of like what Jeff was leading to as well, where if you have legacy clients, how do you build them? Do you open that conversation? Do you just do it? And then by just doing it, you spawn that conversation, kind of like what you talked about, John. Then the other side is, you know, if there's more things you want to add on, you just create 2 other tiers and you essentially tell them they're on the basic package, and you can move on to this 3rd tier that's a little bit more better, or you can go to our higher tier, which is really, really the stuff that you want. But whatever it is you want to try and upsell or whatever you want to sell, you make it the middle one, is what I've heard. So,
And obviously do it as an informed business owner, and keep in mind, you know, you're going to want to run the numbers to see what happens if you do lose 10, 20, or 30% of your customers because they don't want to pay or they want to move on based on your rate.
Yep.
Don't do it blindly. But
So is the question really how to get legacy customers up to date in pricing?
no.
Or is it just all inclusive of, I think I need to raise my rates, but how do I figure that out?
Essentially, right. Like when is a good time to do it? So for example, you should always be looking at your rates, and you should always be raising your rates as time moves on. Now, outside of, you know, and things are good right now. You're not struggling, you're not worrying about much, but you should get with the times essentially. What do you look into? How much do you look into, and how do you determine how much you should raise that rate?
Well, speaking for my Canadian friend, it depends.
yeah, that one were easy. That wouldn't be such a good question. So
Yeah, there's so many factors because I'll be honest with you, I don't look at it anymore from a, hey, at the end of the year, I'm going to evaluate. I will do it whenever based on the customer. If a customer, like John was saying, if a customer adds, 5 computers in a month, you have that discussion right there. You don't wait till the end of the year to do that. My deal with my customers, I don't even tell them anymore. If they add computers, it's automatic.
Mm-hmm.
If they,
you and me both. I mean, that's one of the reasons I don't have any SLAs or contracts or anything, to give me the freedom just to do it when I want to do it.
Right.
And I think in what I've been doing this since 95 on my own. So somebody do the math. I think I've maybe been questioned twice, and one was, wow, that was a big increase. And the other one is just when I saw an interchange on the invoice, just want to make sure that's correct. So, I think that's pretty good for that amount of time. But, I also do it with trust in mind and considering how I would want to be billed for the services I'm billing. So don't just add $1,500 because you need new tires. Add it because it's justified, because they added stuff and you need to work for them.
Right.
So here's how I do it. Follow the model of your cell phone providers, your cable television providers.
Oh, God.
They don't tell you.
Right.
And they cap you at a terabyte.
You just call in one day and they're like, yeah, here are our plans.
Yeah, I often wonder why we stress about this so much, because tell me another service that tells you this. Your insurance company doesn't. Nobody does.
No, they don't.
There's no other industry that gives you, the only industries that do this are small service industries like us.
That actually give a crap about people.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. So
really,
so that's what I do.
And I'm not saying don't treat your customers with respect and all that, but most of them don't want to go through the hassle of reading new paperwork, signing up for another thing, extending their doing this, doing that. They just want the crap to work. They want uptime. So just bill them appropriately. If there's a question, that's a great time to have a conversation and reaffirm the services you're delivering.
Yep.
Boom.
Yeah.
But here's what you may want to think about, Paco, is just make a sheet every year that lists what your standard rates are, not what your special rates are, not what here's my standard rate, here are the services I provide, so that when they do call and ask, you send them that, and they're like, oh, well, can you do any better? You know what? I do have a discount if you go on this plan. Right. But but here's what I've done. I forgot to mention this earlier. You talked about the tiers having, a basic tier. I don't do that anymore.
No.
I go on to, I figure out what my bottom line expenses are going to be and make sure that I've got that covered, period. And the way that I bill is I go to whatever that website is, salary.com, and figure out what the salary is for, network administrator level 5 for zip code 33301 is salary and benefits. And then I divide that by my hours. And so I have it set up to where, if I bill, if I can only bill 960 hours, that's my top rate. And then I go one below that, that's my secondary rate. I only have the two rates. It's my on-site rate and my remote rate. And then my service agreements are based on another formula, but we don't have to get into that now. But that's it. Just, make sure your rates cover your expenses, and, don't tell them. I mean, it's every other industry doesn't do this, except for the auto industry where they'll have their rates on the wall, but we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think there's a lot to, when you're thinking about raising your rates, I don't think it's as difficult as a lot of people make it. And I think a lot of times we just feel bad and don't feel bad. And I'm with you, Marvin. I've gone to basic and just keeping things basic, and I don't offer different tiers. It's like, here's my rate. Here's what it is. And if you make me mad, it's going to be this much more. So now
I like that too. I only have my best tier, and it's based on how much work I think you're going to be and how big your business is.
Because you can't offer, and we've talked about this before, you can't offer 3 different plans because 9 times out of 10, well, maybe not, maybe 8 times out of 10, they're going to pick the lowest plan and not need all the things they need for that business. And maybe, one of those times somebody might pick a middle one, and somebody might pick the higher tier. But really, if you're doing the same thing for every business, every customer client out there, it really should be a lot of the same types of things. Or you do separate agreements like Marvin talked about, and you build those in accordingly. John and his dogs.
Oh, I wish I could play music.
All right. So has everybody had a chance to answer some questions and talk about what they wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing. And B, I'll put in the show notes that hourly wage calculator thing.
Okay.
Now, let's take a quick second break, and I want to bring something up about Paco. And then if you guys got a little extra time, we'll go into some emails. All right. So I want to thank those who support this show. And if you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. You guys can give, suggestion is $1 a show. We do 4 shows a month, no more, sometimes less. And you also, even if you want to just give $1, you can set a max amount on Patreon. They make it really easy. So if you just want to give a little something and you don't want to give $4 a month, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. We definitely appreciate that. We have 2 new Patreons, or 2 new patrons, I should say. Jose Gomez and Tim Shepard. Appreciate you all doing that. Definitely helps the show and helps do what we do and keeps me motivated. Like I said, I can be bought. But no, definitely appreciate that. And hopefully we got some things coming down the road as soon as I can free up some time. But yeah, we'll get some things going that I'm excited about doing for the show and with the patrons of the show. All right. So Paco, you, my friend, have an announcement. Now, before we get all teary and weepy-eyed and all that kind of stuff, do you just want to tell people what's going on for those that don't know? Because I think you did have a couple of things out on social media where you did let a lot of people know. But for the people that are listening to this show right now and are excited to hear you every other week, can you tell them what's going on in the big letdown that you're doing to all of us? I mean, I'm sorry.
So what Jeff is leading to, as for those who had possibly heard me on the Computer Business Marketing Show and on social media, I am basically stepping away from podcasting for a little bit. I have officially left the Computer Business Marketing Show with Matthew Rodella, which was this past Wednesday. You can catch that episode over on computerbusinessmarketing.com. And I regretfully have to step away from Podnutz. Now, the bigger pieces of why I'm leaving is I haven't really said it as to why. There are two reasons. One is I am working to increase my hours to get my business afloat and get that more cash flow coming in. The other piece is there's two other projects and something else that I've been wanting to do for a while now that I think it's been time for me to get to. One of them is, the first time I'm actually saying this, is my nonprofit will be launching a podcast. So I will be hosting that podcast for them, for Latino leaders, and helping out for their high school and college programs. So as when I say I am taking a hiatus from podcasting, I am taking a hiatus in the Podnutz and Computer Business Marketing Show arenas and technology based. The other piece that I will be talking about is I'm actually will be probably launching my own podcast, and that will be called The Struggles of an Entrepreneur. And that will be solely focused on that topic. It won't be tech based. It won't be anything. It'll just basically be the day-to-day of what's going on my story. And that's essentially will be coming out hopefully here in the next couple months. But until I get things stable, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So both of those podcasts, and which is why I say hiatus, probably won't happen until probably late fall. Other than that, there's another thing that a lot of people don't really know about me, but before I started the business, I actually was training to do mixed martial arts. And that is something that I'm going to pick back up, and I need to get very serious with my regimen and training so that I can get back into that full force, because that is something I've always wanted to do. And basically me saying it on the air now gives me more of a, I better do it, because I don't want to be viewed as somebody just saying I'm doing something that's not. So after all that long spiel, essentially I wanted to come on one last time this week, as I mentioned on the other show, and it's more difficult to leave, and I'm going to just say it, it's going to be more difficult to leave this show than it is the Computer Business Marketing Show. Now, it's no knack or hit to that other show. The biggest piece is that I've always felt that Podnutz has been home. I believe that the network has improved me as a tech. And I've said this for many years, since when I first started back in 2014, that if it had not been for Podnutz, I would not be as good of a technician that I am now. And it's been 20 years that I've been in the technology field doing tech, and just improving my skill set has improved the last 4 years versus the previous 16 years, me just figuring it all out. And let alone the last 4 years of starting my business, transitioning from a computer technician to a computer business owner. So I wanted to make sure that that I strategically scheduled Marvin to come on this episode today. I also wanted to make sure that John was appearing, because as everyone knows, these three individuals I owe very much a lot, especially to the network, and I'm glad to be able to call as friends. So for that, I want to personally thank all three of you, along with the listeners, for the support and emails that you've given me as far as keeping up with my adventures, asking me for my advice, and just really supporting me and really telling me that you did care to know enough, and me having the privilege to tell you my perspective on how everything goes in this big world of IT that we're trying to figure out.
All right, John, do you have any comments for Paco?
Miss you already, Paco. You always are a comforting voice in my car as I'm driving around, listening to you everywhere you show up. So obviously all the best. I'm sure won't be a stranger. So
yep.
Marvin?
Come back to me. I got to find something.
So the running. Go ahead.
I just want to say, Paco, from the onset of when I first met him, before he actually came on the show, and we've talked over the years. He has been what I will call really my number one cheerleader. And I say that because Paco does a lot of things in the background, and I tried to talk him out of most of it. But he has this willingness to give, and that's why he does the things like the nonprofits. He wants to help people out. And so he's been there doing things behind the scenes, doing call-in stuff, setting up appointments, getting sponsored for the show, doing all these different things that a lot of people don't realize that he does, because pretty much I don't have the time to do it. And so I appreciate him for that. But even more than that, because like I said, I tried to talk him out of most of that, I really have enjoyed his voice on the show, coming in, sharing his perspective, getting his understanding on his thought process. And we've had a lot of good conversations even off the air, but I enjoy getting him here and sharing back and forth. So, Paco, deep down from my heart, I am going to definitely miss you. And I know that you will not be a stranger, and you are always 100% welcome back on this show at any time.
Appreciate it.
And in the words of our good friend, Ben Franklin, be slow in choosing your friend, slower in changing.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very good. All right. Do you guys got a few more minutes? You guys
Anything
good?
for you, Jeff.
All right. This is going to be like a 2-hour podcast, but that's
I'm here for Paco, man. Well, as long as Paco's here, I'm here.
All right.
You know what's
Paco,
what's the running joke, right? Yeah, I'm good. What the running joke was, I was actually going to try and play that one video clip from, have you guys seen Wolf of Wall Street? With Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, I don't watch his movies.
No? Oh, okay. Well, there's a scene in there that he has to leave and then he decides not to. And there's a pretty hilarious scene. I'll send it to you afterwards. But the running joke was to do that. But no, this is what it is. So
he's being serious.
I want somebody to play some Journey.
All right. Go ahead.
I'll find it. Go ahead.
All right. I would say that we will open up the phone lines, but I would be lying. We're probably not going to open up the phone lines. We have a couple of emails. Actually, we've got quite a few. We're going to get through a couple of them because I've been sitting on them for a little bit. So anyways, this one is from Lawrence Small. All right. And this is from his name of his business is lscomputersystems.com. Says, hey, Jeff, I got a call from a sales rep a few days ago who was trying to sell me some kind of referral service, something like what Amazon Pro services. I know I should hang up, but sometimes I get bored and see how long I can keep salespeople on the phone. You mean person, you. I once had a sales rep from Yelp on the phone for 45 minutes. So while talking to this guy, the conversation alerted me to something that I had not heard anyone talk about. He said, and I quote, I know guys that charge dirt cheap rates, but what they're actually doing is collecting information off of customers' computers. I then hung up. I guess he was so forthcoming with this because he thought he had a sale, and I threw him off his scripted pitch. I know in this kind of business, we have access to everything on a PC. I guess sometimes honest people love doing this so much that they don't think of what bad people can do with it. So what do you and the other guys think about this? I'll say this real quick. It goes back to trust for me. You have to have a trusting relationship between yourself and the customer, the client, and that they are going to trust you explicitly with all the things that they are giving to you, all their information on the computer. Now, I've had people who have questioned me in the past and said, well, and even on my agreement, it says I'm not going to share anything, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff on my agreement, they sign. Listen, the last thing I want to do, and it's funny, for people that give me remote access like 24/7, the last thing I want to do ever is remoting your computer to do anything. So the chances of me getting on there to see what you're doing or stealing social security numbers or any of that type of stuff, I have no need for it. And I know that's what Lawrence was saying too, that we're so honest about it, but there are those people out there. And I never thought about that somebody might be charging a cheap rate to actually get information on a customer that they could do nefarious things with.
In the words of Taz, I just want to choke those guys out. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of those going on, just telephone scams in general, right? It sucks because it's the reality of what's going on, and they're getting craftier on how to do it. I think it's just a matter of just trying to educate as best as possible, and that's only to do so much with it, right? But as far as what we're doing about it, I mean, it just comes up in conversation whatever the issue is with the specific issue that I'm going on site for. I bring that up, saying, hey, that's what these guys are doing, and these are the top things that we're worrying about. And it's always a conversation that I have. And then oftentimes and not, they'll tell me, hey, I actually just had one of those calls not too long ago. And some of them are smart enough to not deal with it. Some of them kind of deal with them as far as that part, whether it's a tech support company trying to get in for a cheap rate or another scam.
Well, I think it even goes farther than that, because what we're talking about is telephone scams. What if you're a tech that charges $25 for virus removal? I'm just picking on that number. Don't get offended if that's what you charge. That's what you can live on. That's fine.
Gasp.
But here's the thing. That tech's going in, they're doing a virus removal. They might be going on site. They might be portraying themselves just like we do. And yet what they're doing is they're actually pulling information from that computer, whatever they can get off of there. And that's more valuable to them than actually fixing the computer.
Well, I have to stop right there and say you get what you pay for. So
absolutely,
Paco. And obviously it's harsh but true. You know, buyer beware. But you know, dealing with my customers, I would say that that's not going to happen on my watch. I think I try to build a relationship with my customers because, from the standpoint that they can trust me, to the effect that I provide them with all the information about their technology. They have constant access to that, of what I have, the passwords that I have, the equipment they have. Not that they understand it all, but that does two things. One, they have the confidence that if I end up in Barbados on vacation for longer than 365 days, they can find somebody else to take care of their business, because it's not just personal, it's business first. Even though I take that business that I have with my customers personally. But I think the more important thing is, I think you get into the position where B's in, where he might start bringing in employees. And although you try to vet somebody and you trust somebody, and even though you have a long-term relationship with somebody, those employees may eventually have access to that customer data. And what if one of those employees does something? Well, that immediately reflects on B or a 1099 or whomever is helping you, or even a trusted vendor. So, you know, especially in today's world in compliance, I mean, those are all things that have to be considerations along the way. It may not even be a cheap tech. A lot of the HIPAA breaches that we talk about now have come from CTOs or high-level admins inside of companies stealing that data, taking that data, even in a business level. So I think that's something as technicians that we have to be aware of, and even monitor for the companies we work for. Do we see employees even inside of a company doing something that might be a little nefarious?
Right. Marvin?
So John hit on one of the points I was going to make. It's not just the low-level people. I had an argument with a remote user of one of my customers, claiming that they were having connection issues remotely, and they thought it was something wrong with the server. And I said, no, there's 16 other people working on the server just fine. And I said, it must be your home computer. And she basically replied with, well, I just had Microsoft work on it for 4 hours. They cleaned up a virus. And I said, Microsoft doesn't do that. And she goes, well, yeah, they said it was them, and they had 230,000 infections of the Zeus virus, and only they could clean it. So, and I mean, she paid, I don't know, whatever, $400 or $500 or whatever it was. So it's not that there are people, claiming cheap rates just to get in. It's everybody. And to John's point, we just submitted a assessment for one of my law firms. One of the security audit items is not just, do we monitor employee access and do we, have password rules in place? But one of the line items was actually, do you have a monitor system even for the techs that are working on the network? Which is something that I just had an issue with at one of my clients that has an in-house tech, where we monitor the stuff. I monitor absolutely everybody at that firm, from the managing partner to the firm administrator to the other techs. And this tech basically pitched a hissy fit because he didn't want to be monitored, because he's like, well, why do you have to monitor me? I'm a tech. And I'm like, well, I got to monitor you more because you're a tech.
Right.
And it's from all angles that we've got to look at this stuff, so it is about trust. It is about making the customer feel comfortable, secure, that they're going to be able to work, and they're going to be able to work without fear of, downtime, without fear of compromise, without fear of infection. I mean, it's all those things that we have to make the customer feel good about, in the reason that they're choosing us to maintain their stuff.
I agree. Oh, well, I think that was a good email there. Tell you what, I think I'm going to go ahead and save the rest of these, because we are getting right at the 2-hour mark. So it's like long show. All right, so let's go ahead and do this, and let me do this in a different order. John, give people one party thought and let them know where they can find you at.
On a couple of the past shows, I've been talking about maybe getting together with some guys, you and Jeff, you and I, and talking about HIPAA and HIPAA compliance. I've been getting a couple of emails from guys saying, hey, what's up? Why hasn't that happened? No pressure, just inquiring. What I want to do is, I don't know if everybody knows this, but at the Unconvention this September, we're going to have a great guest speaker there that's going to be talking about this topic. So what I want to do is table our little HIPAA discussion until after the Unconvention, hear what he has to say. And you can find his podcast at helpmewithhipaa.com. And then we'll pick up maybe and do a little bit of HIPAA show if we want to, Jeff.
Cool. Sounds like a plan.
So there's my 2 cents.
MavenGroup.net.
Yeah, MavenGroup.net.
All right. And Mr. Marvin Bee, I know hopefully. Whoa, what was that? We're getting some feedback somewhere. Oh, Lord.
That's really all I can do without us getting in trouble.
I was thinking a little bit more, maybe faithfully.
Stop it, John. Stop encouraging.
Sorry. Paco! And that's the karaoke version, so you won't get in trouble.
There you go. All right, Mr. Marvin Bee. Hopefully, you won't be a stranger for as long as you have been. And I know you've got shows and all kinds of things going on in your busy schedule. But give people one parting thought, as you normally do, and let them know where they can find you in all those glorious places.
Well, you can find me over at Podnutz Pro, where we have 2-hour shows all the time. So I don't. This is not long at all to me. I mean, Rainey talks, man. You can't shut him up. So, but yeah, over at Podnutz Pro on podnutz.com, and you can find me and my business at mbsystems.net. And I'm not going to give out my physical address because I don't do pop-ins. So,
oh, come on.
Oh, we can find you.
Yeah.
You're on the internet somewhere.
Your dream.
All right. Thank you, sir, for showing back up, and definitely appreciate having you. It was fun to have everybody together again. One last time for Paco leaves. Paco, give us one parting thought and let people know where they can't find you.
My parting thought is, this isn't goodbye. This is see you later. And you can find me. Oh, I got to change that. You can find me over at ProdigyTeks.com.
All right. And I'm sure everything that he's doing over there, plus he's on social media and all that stuff too. So you will probably still be seeing him out in the Ethernet and watch his shenanigans going on.
Yeah, I've been pretty active on Twitter, I guess. So you can find my handle at ChitEK CEO, ChITEK CEO.
Awesome. All right, you guys and gals can come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. Join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. You can also send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. That is also our call-in number when we're live on the show. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can be notified when the show is live by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, Computer Repair Podcast.